In December 2008, Wall Street was shaken by a revolution so shocking that it became the biggest financial fraud in history. One man, once celebrated as a pioneer, a mentor, even a trusted friend, had stolen more than $65 billion. This wasn't a petty scam. It wasn't a low-key criminal slipping through the cracks. It was a carefully crafted illusion, one that fooled banks, billionaires, charities, and even regulators. At the center of it all, Bernie Madoff, the man who built an empire of trust on nothing but lies. Before the fraud, before the collapse, Bernie Madoff was a success story. Born in Queens, New York in 1938, Bernie Lawrence Madoff didn't come from great wealth. His father worked odd jobs. His mother once ran a small accounting business that later failed. Bernie, however, was ambitious. In 1960, at just 22 years old, with $5,000 he had saved from working as a lifeguard and installing sprinklers, he started his own trading firm. It was a risky move, but Bernie had a sharp eye for opportunity. At the time, Wall Street was still old-fashioned. Trades were recorded on paper slips. Communication was chaotic, but Bernie embraced technology. He invested in electronic trading long before it became mainstream. This put him ahead of the curve. By the 1980s, Madoff's name carried serious weight. He was no longer just another trader. He was considered a pioneer, one of the men who helped shape the Nasdaq exchange. He became its chairman 3 separate times. His reputation was sterling. Madoff seemed like the kind of man you could trust with anything. He was soft-spoken, polite, and carried himself with quiet confidence. Unlike many flashy Wall Street figures, Bernie wasn't loud or arrogant. He didn't boast about his wealth. He didn't need to. To his clients, his word was gold. And that is what made what came later so devastating. Because behind the polished image of a Wall Street statesman, Bernie Madoff was building the foundations of a house of cards. So, how exactly did Bernie Madoff run his scheme? At first glance, his operation looked like a traditional investment firm. Clients gave him money. He promised to invest it in stocks and options using a strategy he described as split strike conversion. To most people, it sounded complex but sophisticated, the kind of thing only a financial genius could pull off. Each month, clients received detailed account statements showing their returns. And those returns were always impressive, consistent, and reliable. No matter what happened in the real world, whether the market was up, down, or in crisis, Bernie's clients kept seeing steady growth, 10% here, 12% there, year after year. It was the dream investment, safe, smooth, stress-free. But here's the truth. None of it was real. Bernie wasn't investing his clients' money at all. Instead, he was running a Ponzi scheme. The structure is simple. New investors give you money. Instead of investing it, you use that money to pay returns to earlier investors. Those early investors thrill with their profits, tell friends and family. Word spreads, more people invest. It's a cycle that feeds itself. The more people join, the bigger the illusion becomes. And as long as withdrawals don't exceed deposits, the scam can keep going. Bernie's genius wasn't inventing the Ponzi scheme. Charles Ponzi had made it infamous back in the 1920s. Bernie's genius was in making it look so sophisticated, so trustworthy, that nobody questioned it. He generated fake trading records, he produced professional-looking statements, he gave investors just enough access to feel secure, but never enough to verify the truth. And because returns looked safe and steady, few people wanted to dig deeper. For decades, the illusion failed. What started as a small deception eventually ballooned into a fraud of unimaginable scale, the largest Ponzi scheme in history. You might ask, how did Bernie convince so many people? The answer lies in trust and exclusivity. Bernie didn't chase investors. He did the opposite. He acted as if he didn't need them. If you wanted to invest with him, you often had to be referred by someone already inside his cycle. Even then, you might be turned away at first. This created an aura of mystery. Getting into Madoff's fund wasn't just about making money. It felt like being invited into an exclusive club. And the club was filled with big names, celebrities, billionaires, even major banks. If people at the top trusted Bernie, why wouldn't you? His clients list included film director Steven Spielberg's foundation, Nobel Prize winner Elie Wiesel's charity, European banks, American hedge funds, and countless wealthy families. But it wasn't just the rich. Retirees, teachers, small charities, and ordinary families also trusted him with their life savings. For decades, investors opened their statements and saw steady, predictable profits. No wild swings, no stress, just smooth upward growth. Bernie also had something priceless: reputation. He was seen as a Wall Street statesman, a man who had been chairman of Nasdaq, a man who looked and acted respectable. When you combine exclusivity, reputation, and steady returns, you create the perfect storm of trust. So when investors were asked how they felt about Bernie, most answered the same way: safe. In that belief, the illusion of safety was exactly what kept the scheme alive. But not everyone was fooled. To some sharp observers, Bernie's operation just didn't make sense. How could he deliver steady gains when the market itself was so unpredictable? How could he avoid losses during downturns that hit everyone else? One man, Henry Makopoulos, a financial analyst, decided to dig deeper. In 1999, he studied Bernie's number and quickly realized something shocking. The math didn't work. Madoff's returns weren't just impressive, they were impossible. Makopoulos spent years investigating. He created reports, ran calculations, and every time he reached the same conclusion: Madoff is running a Ponzi scheme. He repeatedly submitted his findings to the SEC, the government agency tasked with protecting investors. His reports had blunt titles like "The world's largest hedge fund is a fraud." But the SEC failed to act. Sometimes they performed surface-level reviews, other times they didn't follow at all. Madoff's spotless reputation seemed to shield him. There were other red flags too. His firm used a small, obscure accounting company, far too small for a fund managing billions. His trading activity was almost impossible to verify. He avoided questions, kept things vague, and refused transparency. Yet time and time again, people chose to look away. Some were blinded by the money, others trusted too deeply in Bernie's reputation. And regulators, for reasons still debated, never pressed hard enough. For nearly a decade, warnings piled up, but nothing changed. The scheme kept growing. While his investors believed their money was hard at work, Bernie Madoff lived a life of extraordinary luxury. He owned a sprawling penthouse in Manhattan, a beach house in the Hamptons, a mansion in Palm Beach, a villa in the south of France, even a yacht, ironically named Bull. He and his family flew on private jets, vacationed in style, and enjoyed the privileges of extreme wealth. But here is the twist: Bernie wasn't flashy. Unlike many Wall Street high rollers, he didn't plaster his wealth across tabloids. He cultivated a quieter image, comfortable but modest. This was part of the illusion. If Bernie had flaunted his riches, people might have asked questions. Instead, he appeared as a respectable, understated man, a man who lived well but not outrageously. Behind closed doors, though, the money he stole funded a life of luxury and privilege. It was wealth built not on brilliance but on betrayal. Every Ponzi scheme eventually hits the same wall. As long as more money comes in than goes out, the illusion survives. But once too many investors demand withdrawals, the system collapses. For Bernie Madoff, that moment came in 2008. The global financial crisis struck. Stock markets crashed. Panic spread. Investors everywhere wanted to pull their money. Madoff's clients were no different. Within weeks, withdrawal requests piled up to about $7 billion. But Bernie didn't have the money. There were no investments, no reserves, just a giant hole. By December, the pressure was unbearable. He knew it was over. On December 10th, Bernie sat down with his sons, Mark and Andrew, who worked at his firm. He confessed the truth in a chilling sentence: "It's all one big lie." The next day, December 11th, 2008, Bernie Madoff was arrested at his Manhattan apartment. The news spread instantly. The financial world was in shock. Investors who thought they were safe discovered they had lost everything. Decades of illusion had ended in a single morning. The collapse of Bernie Madoff's scheme was catastrophic. Thousands of investors lost their savings. Charities collapsed. Retirement funds disappeared. Families were ruined. The total fraud was estimated at $65 billion, though the actual cash lost was around $20 billion. Still, it remains the largest Ponzi scheme in history. For some victims, the loss was financial. For others, it was emotional. People who had trusted Bernie for decades now felt betrayed. Friendships ended, lives unraveled. Some victims couldn't bear the devastation. Tragically, suicides were reported among those who lost everything. In 2009, Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison. It was the maximum penalty allowed by law. The judge called the crimes extraordinarily evil. But the punishment didn't stop with Bernie. His family suffered too. His wife, Ruth, claimed she knew nothing. She lost almost everything as well. His son, Mark, died by suicide in 2010. On the second anniversary of Bernie's arrest, his other son, Andrew, died of cancer in 2014. The Madoff name became forever linked to tragedy. So what can we learn from the Bernie Madoff scandal? First, it shows how powerful illusions can be. Madoff wasn't offering the highest returns. He offered steady, believable ones, and that made people feel safe. Second, it's a story of regulatory failure. The SEC had multiple chances to stop him. Warnings were ignored. Investigations were shallow. The system failed. Third, it proves that fraud doesn't only hurt the rich. Yes, billionaires lost money, but so did small charities, retirees, and ordinary families. The pain spread everywhere. And finally, it shows how dangerous unchecked trust can be. Madoff wasn't just a fraudster. He was a master of psychology. He used reputation, exclusivity, and modesty to disarm suspicion. The lesson is clear. In investing, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Bernie Madoff didn't just steal money. He stole futures. He stole dreams. He stole security. His scheme wasn't built on financial genius. It was built on confidence, trust, and lies. And when it finally collapsed, the world saw how fragile even the strongest reputations can be. Madoff once admitted to an interviewer, "It's not just money, it's people's life." And that is the most haunting truth. In the end, the story of Bernie Madoff is more than the story of a man. It's a warning about greed, trust, and the devastating cost of deception. Because sometimes the most dangerous face is the one you think you can trust the most. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. The next story is closer than you think.